So I'm CEO of Viral Heat. I will give you the 30-second on Viral Heat, but really I'm here to talk to you about predictive social analytics and really how you can help you every day in your job. So a little bit about Viral Heat. We are a Bay Area-based company, so San Francisco, San Mateo just south. Relatively new, 2011, built as a technology, a data engine company. And the quick, we'll test these out. We haven't done these yet. There we go. We jumped fast. A lot of buzz. You can go and look us up on Google. Impressive customer list. We've had a lot of growth on the customer side. Let's see if we can get this to work. There we go. And then last but not least, a lot of you going to switch. There we go. I'm a big believer in, we can't control review sites. There's G2 Crowd, there's Trust Radius. Go look for yourself, compare us to any of the tools you're using, and that is the commercial on Viral Heat. We are really an end-to-end social media management and content engine, which means we can do publishing, listening, engagement, and everything has analytics and reporting with it. But today we're talking about, and really let's start with the sort of three key takeaways I'd like each of you to take from this meeting. There's been some great conversations this morning, and actually that's a number of them I will touch on and just sort of reiterate points that were already made today. But there's three things if you leave from this. First is the role of social marketing is changing. I'll talk a little bit about that. Content is still king. Everyone in here is part of our job is creating content, but data really matters. And finally, I'll talk about some real examples, some of our customer examples that we can show you, and other examples in the industry, how people can start to use the data with the content to really what we call predictive social analytics. So, I think in the last conversation, Paul was talking about how the good old days when your job was easier, and so the role of a social media marketer, of a marketer in general, has changed. It used to be, much simpler that people weren't really tracking your metrics. There was kind of like go get content, get followers. This is a survey done by Social Fresh 2 years ago. And it shows, a lot of what the goals that people were on were engagement and followers. We got to get people to like and follow us on Twitter or Facebook, etc. And so those were fine at a time. And then I know they will do the survey again next year in 15. My guess is this will look very different. Because the role of a marketer has changed dramatically. It is not simply, I'm going to create content and post 5 times a day. And this chart is purposely confusing, so don't twist your mind trying to look at every little thing. But the idea that you can just sort of push content out there is kind of moving beyond it. If your CEO or your management or your company isn't asking you, it will change very quickly. Because ultimately what they're really looking for is some type of ROI. And I always love this comic, but it's the shift from kind of a broadcast model to where really you as social owners are actually driving business results. And it's happened in every marketing area. If you look at email, today email has gone from someone just sending out email to being people using Marketo or Eloqua, and it's all tied into your entire demand gen and customer acquisition. Search is the same way. In the early days, it was just, hey, go buy some AdWords. Today, you have data teams studying that and optimizing it. And social is going to move the same way going forward. So, content is king, data matters. What does that mean? So first of all, I think it was said several times again today that content does matter. And I love a couple of these. I'll give you a second to read this one, in particular the fine print. Good content still really works. Once you get down there to the, exactly. The other one is great information works as well. This is one of my favorite ones. Now, my kids are quite a bit younger. I think by the time they're teenagers, this will probably change from 6 minutes to about 6 seconds. But great content, great information, it works. It's great. And you know that. When you put out good content, it gets retweeted, it gets posted, people use it, people consume it. The challenge is it's hard to continue to make content. There's a lot of content out there. The noise to relevance ratio in the social sphere is huge. It's very hard to get your information, your content to rise above the noise. And then ultimately, how do you make it relevant to your audience? If you're just broadcasting out, 5 times a day at different times, if these are people who like or follow you, a number of things have changed. First of all, Facebook has made it much harder. You're only reaching a single-digit percentage of that audience is following you. Second, a number of those people may not have actually really been followers of yours. If people spend a lot of money running programs or promotions, a lot of those people may have signed up to be, because they were going to win a free iPad or an Amazon card. So how do you actually get the content to the right people and make it relevant? And then ultimately, how do you get that in a way that you can start to make that predictive or a real process so you can start to figure it out? And Sarah, who spoke earlier, had a lot of great tools that she talked about. but it's a very challenging thing for any company and any individual to do. Part of the challenge is, and again, a good example of there are lots of tools out there, and those of you who follow the industry, Nate Elliott is one of the lead analysts on social for Forrester. He's talking about, as we move from kind of a first or second generation, a lot of the first generation tools weren't built to take advantage of that data. They were built to be tools for a particular workflow, publishing, listening. Hey, you need to generate reports that you can show to your boss, your management, or your board. And this is his statement, is that these data platforms, this element of data coming in, will really revolutionize and really enable the next generation of social to make it truly a business line, not just a broadcast line. And so part of that is starting to think of everything as a continuous flow. And those of you in this room who probably manage social media, look at this as all one part of one workflow. Monitoring or listening is part of the same thing. You're listening to the social sphere out there. The engagement in publishing is part of that. Is you're listening to what's happening and engaging back. Everything needs to have analytics tied to it, and then it needs to integrate into whatever your business, your company, you as an individual need to do to take action on that. So it could be if it's sales opportunities that gets into your CRM system, if it's customers who need to be, that needs to get over to your support organization. And so that's really, this is how you start to get towards driving an ROI, because you can actually take all of these elements together. And if you today are using multiple tools or trying to do this in different processes, it's going to be very challenging to do, because it's not going to be able to leverage the data that is out there. So let me give you a couple case studies and examples of customers that we have. Some are named, some are not, of how they've been able to use some of this capability and apply it, and hopefully you can take some takeaways from that. So I always start with the 4 W's of when you think about content and how you reach that audience. The first one is, who is the audience you're going to? That is so relevant. The biggest thing about it, if the content isn't relevant to me, I'm not going to consume it. It doesn't matter. Could be great content. Humor is one that obviously transcends almost anything, but most content has to be relevant to who you are. That's why we have retargeting, and we get followed around the web by any site that we went on, because it was relevant. The problem is that was relevant to you at one time. It's not necessarily relevant to you going forward. Understanding what content works. So there's 2 forms of this. One is people coming to your site. You can track that, but you can't always track people. If you post something out, if you post out a content that maybe isn't your original content, how do you actually track what happens? Or if someone comes to your site, they're not necessarily going to leave. I talked to one customer recently, like, well, should we put a ratings and review on the white papers on our site? And like, that's not, no one's going to take the time to do that. They're going to barely take the time to read it. A way to measure success would be how often they're taking that content and it's getting sent, being shared across the internet. And then the other thing is where and when people are interacting with this. So again, a lot of great tools. We have some of those capabilities in our tool of being able to schedule publishing, being able to do different things at different times. But if you don't have the data to understand when people are engaging with a topic that's relevant to you, your brand, it's going to be, you're still somewhat shooting in the dark. And so that's how you can use data to just vastly improve your ability to get the right content to the right people. And so I always look at, the great thing about social is that it is like a giant focus group. All this information is public data, so people have put it out there. Obviously, if it's private, that's different, but it's public data, and they are telling you things about themselves that most of you as marketers in here, or people within your marketing organization, would pay lots of money to have. That's why there's companies that provide data. There's Experian and Axiom and others, because people want that kind of data about people. Social is where people are sharing that data freely and publicly. Now, it is not possible to do it at scale as an individual and try to pull all this information together. So ultimately, some form of technology or machine learning has to come in to be able to, for each of you in your job, to be able to do that at any kind of scale and at any kind of regularity. There's a great, like I said, it's a little bit, I like the word this morning, was it Uberizing or Uberization of your business. So this is a little bit of every business, every role is going to be, I like that concept. It's kind of stuck with me. And so ultimately what you can do, if you can harness that data and get to those 4 W's, you can actually start to predict engagement rather than reacting to engagement. And let me give you a couple examples to kind of bring that home. So first of all is understanding, this is something we did for one of our entertainment customers. And we put it into an infographic, so this is publicly available. You can see it on our website. We're happy to share it with you. There's a bunch of work we were doing with their data, and then one of the things they asked us to do is to be able to identify affinity of people who follow their brand, or in this case a show, also have affinity to other brands. Now, ironically, I was happened to talk to the CMO of one of the companies that's in those bubbles down below, thinking that we had done this specifically for her. She was all excited because she's like, oh, wow, my brand is affiliated with this. Really powerful information you can start to understand. You can think in TV advertising where they spend lots and lots of dollars still. It still is significantly higher than what gets spent in digital. How this could be really valuable information is just trying to really identify your audience, especially in a world where people stream and DVR and don't really watch commercials. Let me give you another example. This is one I can't show the customer name here, but this is one where they have a product that is sort of targeted for people who are going to be newlyweds, somewhere along the line between getting engaged and actually getting married. Their products are very valuable. So they really want to know when you become engaged, because you've moved from someone who's single or someone who's married who's not a target audience to them to someone who actually fits directly in the target audience. And they know the typical engagement lasts 12.2 months, so it's very important for them to know that quickly and then be able to react to it. So they've used social data to be able to monitor anything related to, and this is just a subset of it, we just do this for demonstration purposes, just keywords related to I'm engaged. And you can see some of the metrics here underneath that. So it could be hashtags, and their system is set up with probably thousands of these, to be able to identify people. And this isn't identifying trends or lines. This is actually being able to identify down to someone's Facebook ID or their Twitter handle. And then you can really laser focus if you want to use promoted ads. You may have information about that individual already. It maps to someone in your email into your database, and you can target them, put them on a different nurture track. So there's lots of valuable things. And this is an example I can tell you. Moving is another one where people talk about the #1 selling advertising data product is moving. All of that data is based on post-move data. So when you move into a new place and you get bombarded with flyers in the mail and things on your door, that information was sold from one of these data companies to a bunch of marketers, and it was based on something like you going to the Safeway store and swiping your credit card, and they now know that you have moved from San Diego to San Francisco. Having that proactively, you can see the huge value of that. Timing of the day matters. This is another one we did for we do a lot of work with entertainment companies. These are shows. This is not a heat map. This is not just sort of showing. This is actually, you could drill down underneath this and look at each individual post in this area. So white being low engagement, green being high engagement. So you can see in different shows. I always laugh at the South Park one. Not surprising that people are not talking about South Park early in the morning, but either they wake up at 7 o'clock. That must be kids going to school. I can't think of why there's a little block of dark green for South Park at 7 in the morning. But yeah, so great. If you can use this as a marketer, now you can start to say, you can have one or two strategies. You could say, hey, I want to fill in some of those white spaces and get people talking about my brand when they typically aren't, because that's really a value, and that's a value you're now bringing to the rest of the company and the marketing department, and something social can do cost effectively. Or you may say, hey, I don't want to try to change people's behavior, and say, there's a reason they're engaging with me on Thursdays between 7 and 9, and I'm going to maximize that time to make sure that I'm putting really good, high-quality content out there because people are talking about my brand, my product, or related products. And again, this can be applied to any sort of keywords along the side. It doesn't have to be TV shows or brands. It could be topics. And the last one I'll do, because there's probably a few people in here who are business to business. This is an example of one where I can actually use the brand. This was a Deutsche Telekom T-Mobile was rolling out a new business phone service for small businesses. Not an area that most people here think of T-Mobile as a mobile. It's in their name. And it's a consumer brand, although they do have a business division. They tried to run, they were launching against, this product was going to be going against Vonage and RingCentral and others who are already in the space. They tried to run a typical email campaign, figuring they wanted to get 500 pilot customers on the system, sent it out to, I don't know what the size list was, and got 0 customers. Because basically, it's the same thing. When do you think about your business phone system? First of all, most of us here probably don't think about it because we're carrying it around in our pocket. But if you are actually thinking about a business phone system and you're a small business, you're thinking about it in 1 of 3 times. You're starting a business, you're expanding a business, you're really unhappy with your current provider. Likely one of those providers I showed you on the other page, because then you don't have to get over the threshold of having to understand what voice over IP is. Fourth thing for T-Mobile would be someone who's a huge advocate of T-Mobile, and there are parts of the country where they have great network and great promoters. And so they were licensing our system. We said, why don't you use this for your pilot? And they did. They went out and they got their pilot customers within a couple weeks, no cost. And the great thing, which comes back to this content, is they started to actually learn the right nomenclature and the right content and the right words to use when they're going into this area. So let me sort of wrap up here with the key takeaways. As I said, the role of social marketing is changing. It will continue to change as it is in everything. Content still king, but the ability to take data and use it is going to be critical to your business. And then I gave you some of the examples of how that could actually be applied. The last one I want to apply, and this is something we want to offer to everyone who's attending this event, is the way to do this is test and learn. And so one of the things we're looking at is we'll be launching as a beta service, and we want to have anyone in this audience who wants to be a beta tester can go to this landing page or talk to our head of marketing who's out at the booth, Tobias. Would love to have experts like yourselves teach us how we can make this product most effective. So those examples I gave you are great, but a lot of them are big brands or require a lot of sort of resources. We want to be able to take, and these are some screenshots of what we're working on, so you can actually, as you produce a piece of content, we can tell you all the metrics around it about where it was shared, what the engagement was, and time of day, etc. So we're early. This will be beta sometime in Q4, but we'd love to get your feedback because ultimately we want to make an application that works for all of you in your day. It doesn't matter if you're a small business or if you're T-Mobile. So that's the wrap here. Hopefully a couple of those key takeaways resonate with you and you get back to your jobs next week. And we're available, as I said, we have a small booth out here if you want to talk to us either. Happy to talk to you about our product or happy to talk to you about anything as far as being a beta tester with Viral Heat. Thank you.